Okay. Hi, my name is Argentarius, and I decided I'm going to try and start streaming my work in progress, as in, like, I'm about to do a film day today, but I figured I would uh, take you along, as in, you can get painted with me, and I'll be here chatting. Feel free to join me in the chat if you want. If you're seeing this in a recording, don't worry. You didn't miss any notifications. I didn't really announce this. This is kind of ad hoc, but yeah, I'll continue working on my stripes. And I left my mouth area free this time because someone on Blue Sky had a really good question on, like, how do I paint around the beard? So how do I not get the paint in the beard? And it's actually a really good question. I used to actually paint in my beard and paint the same color as the skin to match, but lately I've been really liking the look of leaving the beard as unpainted as possible. There's going to always be some paint in the beard whenever you do this, but it's yeah, I figure I kind of briefly answered it on Blue Sky, which if you don't follow me there, Blue Sky is a great place for catching little glimpses into things kind of in between my videos. And it's been really nice chatting with all of you there and meeting some people. Uh, One of the reasons why I want to try doing a little bit more live streaming is because I kind of get stuck in the editing phase. And if I live stream it, I don't need to edit, or I'm not tempted to edit, at least not as much. So, first things first, to get the paint as close as possible to the beard, uh, what I use one of these. I call them a fluffy brush, but it's like a blush brush or anything similar. Blush, contour. They come in many names, but I use this one's not shaped. It's kind of bent into a shape because of the dried paint on it. Um, I only recently made it into the shape I recently used this, so it I had lunch in between this, so that's why you're seeing it kind of bent. Anyway, not to get too much into the weeds, I'm loading up my brush now just with some water and squeezing out the excess. With my hands, you'll get paint on your hands if you work with paint. That's just the nature of things. Um, and what's going to happen is the hairs. One thing to note that's probably a good idea to keep in mind is that the hairs on the facial hair will are springy and have a chance of, like, splattering the paint. So I'm going to move this piece of equipment further away so it doesn't catch as much as a splatter, potentially. It's just a little bit here and there. But what I'll do is I'll either use my finger and just get as close as I can without touching the hairs as much as possible. And then to get even closer, I use a round brush and then just come in, and you'll have to maneuver your face a little bit to expose where you're getting at. And I go around the outside first. and I just dab, and I come at an angle to try and get underneath the roots. Now this isn't 100% perfect, and hit the you'll definitely get paint on the hairs, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I don't know if you can see this on camera, but there is definitely like a halo of like more white paint concentrated by this brush. And what we can do is we can blend that out. I'll do that real quick just with the big brush. Blend it out so it looks a bit more even with the rest of the face. There. Still a bit more white, but it'll dry and look a bit more blended. Now, I'm using my fingers, but you can also use another handle of another brush to go in and move the hairs out of the way as much as possible. And I'm doing the upper lip now, kind of in between. Now, for this part, I'll lift my whiskers and paint the upper lip here. On both sides, and any bit of detail where I feel like I need to get the roots a little bit better, I'll just kind of dab. Now I'll just pull my lip back a bit. And underline. Here. And you'll see that there is this part where my facial hair is kind of growing in a line. What I do is I'll just do that, put my lip on top of my teeth to help get underneath that, and use the brush handle to get even more underneath. I do end up painting the brush handle a bit, but that's fine. And the basic idea is to get just all the skin and as little as the hair as possible. Just continuously dab into the roots of these things, coming at both ends, the top and the bottom. come at the sides here and go down. I don't know if the camera's catching it very well. If I angle towards the camera, I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, I think this angle works a bit. So I'm basically getting the lower part now. And you just have to angle the brush where you want to apply the paint and where you want to angle or get at the so the tip of the brush is where you're going to get the root, or if this were your head, your scalp. So you're kind of pinpoint targeting the skin, and you are painting the root of the hairs, but leaving the majority of the hairs unpainted. And there we go. I think I got it. And there's nothing wrong with painting the facial hair. I've just chosen to go with a style of not painting the facial hair, except for, like, if you look at the cheetah, when I do the teardrop, I make my facial hair as part of it, so I'll paint that in black as well. And I think that's just a fun effect. Getting closer to the skin there. There. Ta-da. Of course, for the finale, I suppose, is to put on lipstick. And I try not to get lipstick in my whiskers. But you have to be careful not to pull too much, because then you're pulling the skin a bit, and then you're gonna kind of be off in terms of making it even. Although if it's slightly uneven, that's also perfectly fine. Ah, I dabbed, although you can't really see it very well, I dabbed a little spot there. I'll see if I can patch that up real quick. There we go. Might be running out of lipstick here. Oh good, I still have more. Okay, nice and blue. I do like this blue. It's nice and shiny. Although the light kind of has to hit it correctly, otherwise it just looks like black sometimes. There we go. Dab a little bit of white on the Cupid's bow there. Cool. Now it's time for the stripes. I'm gonna say I'm rather I haven't. This year is like the first time I've been on social media in a long time. I I've tried like Instagram and stuff. I just don't. I don't really, especially with Instagram being the way it is now. I've not really used it. Um, but it's been years since I've done any sort of any sort of social media until like this year when I started doing YouTube and started doing um, videos. And I'm I have to say I'm enjoying Blue Sky. It took me a little while to kind of get back into it and figure out like where does social media fit into my life, I guess. And I'm kind of finding that just sort of letting letting sort of kind of inspiration hit wherever it hits and just posting is beneficial, is helpful. And I'm also like when I don't know what to post, I'll just look at what other people post, and I've been really enjoying seeing like the creativity that other people have. And there was this one post where I posted about how I have like about half a dozen projects at any given point. Like uh, not all of them necessarily related to videos or anything like that, but I'll have half a dozen projects. Like one of my projects is writing, um, trying to pick up how to write Chinese characters. Another project that I have a bunch of them anyway. So I wrote a post on like how I have about like half a dozen projects, and then dozens upon dozens more is sitting in the back of my mind, just waiting their turn, is what it feels like. And I find that this is not a bad thing. Whereas before, uh, I would be, I guess, I would be reprimanded for not sticking to something. Now I've just kind of embraced the fact that I'm always going to have multiple projects at once, and I finish them. Not all of them, but I finish most of them. And first stripe's always the hardest. But I've just kind of embraced the fact that I have quite a few projects to choose from, and I described it as like a project buffet. I can sort of feel where I'm at today and pick and choose which project to work on. So I have the benefit of doing that. I don't think I would change that. But a friend of mine commented uh, on that. on that imagery. A friend of mine commented on that imagery and described it as a Project Pasture because going with the horse or the pony or the zebra motif, you have a field that you can graze on, wherever you like, sort of a project buffet or project pasture in our case. So I really like that. Thank you very much, Hang Nine Hound, for coming up with that term. I'm gonna have to use that for something. I don't know how I feel about this line here. I'm gonna try and clean it up. Hopefully this isn't a mistake to try and clean it up. I better wait for it to dry. Otherwise that'll be a mistake. Now, when I try and do my stripes, I try and do them so that the center of the face is smaller, and then as you get further, the stripes get bigger and thicker. And everything kind of stems from the center of the face. And this goes with like cheetah spots or tiger stripes, anything. Anything really. Okay. Follow the curve. I like how these stripes can kind of branch off, kind of like lightning. I just love patterns. Let's see. There we go. And you've probably noticed by now that I don't put like black or a dark color around the face, much like a real zebra would have. And that's because with or without the facial hair, I don't do that because I feel on a human face it doesn't look good because the black will make your face look sunken, and it's really hard to get your mind to kind of undo that. So I leave this area alone and a brighter color, but I do play with the way the stripes go so that the face looks a bit more pointed and longer. You can't necessarily get a horse or equine snout there with a human face, but you can at least suggest it, and it's also okay to be stylized. Don't have to be picture perfect. And there. Cool. Okay, so I'm still not feeling the center line that I did. Maybe I was talking too much. While working. I got the blue in that. So I'm going to have to come back with blue. With painting, it's best if you can avoid trying to go back and erase and fix. Ideally, but there are cases where you can just kind of run with it, and there are cases where it's like, nah, that's kind of bothering me. And I guess with time and experience, you get the benefit of knowing which are the cases where it would be best to do that. I'm going to let that dry. So today we're filming another podcast episode. It'll probably be a little bit before I can get that one out because I have another that I'm editing. But you'll get to see that in the podcast episode. You'll get to see this in the podcast episode as well. This podcast episode is about labels and how we use them. I'm not exactly sure if that's going to be the final title, especially since the title kind of goes under a few revisions because I sit with it for a bit as I'm editing. And of course, YouTube likes their titles and thumbnails to be a bit more snappy and eye-catching and stuff. But I also publish to podcasts in general. So like if you're like podcasts in general and you just want to listen to it, you should be able to find the Menagerie Chats on whichever podcast platform you use, except for Spotify. Um, I I have not been able to publish on Spotify, but just about everywhere else you should be able to find it if you just want to listen to us. Let's see. I think that's pretty good. Just have to come back and fix the blue. There we go. It's not perfect, and it's probably going to show up on the photos. But that's okay. I love how in the comic that Sakauer made for me, uh, it plays with the idea that you do a little bit adjustment, and then all of a sudden, uh, what turned out to be just for eyeliner becomes a zebra design. And if you do makeup, you'll know that's quite common. You'll end up putting on more makeup as you adjust to try and make it even or something. And I just find that fun and funny, and it's very much the truth that like it feels like I'm doing eyeliner over and over again especially around my eyes here. I have to line my eyes like what, 3, 4, 5 times. Imagine doing that many wingtips. Anyway, I think I am ready to. I'm ready to, or just about ready to go film and record our new episode. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any, if you have any other requests on like how do I do things, please feel free. You can add it in the comments here. You can also follow me on Blue Sky. Uh, yeah, I'm. Thank you very much for submitting questions, and thank you so much uh, for gosh. Uh, I had an episode where I talk about my stuttering, and I guess that is one thing I can't do live is I can't edit that out, the awkward pauses and the where I lose my train of thought. Um, yeah, I hide that quite a bit in my episodes, and I'm trying to not be as much of a perfectionist. Anyway, uh, uh, before I get too much into that, uh, thank you so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video.